what facilitates the most stacked position throughout the entirety of the eccentric. Some people try to touch way too high and then end up in this almost skull crusher jam press kind of position, which, don't get me wrong, get some pretty decent tricep stimulation, but you're not going to press 400 or 500 pounds in a position like that.
Yeah, I've highlighted this in probably all of our modules for the different lifts. Mostly in the bench press, talking spine safety, but of course from Kabuki Strength, we want to give you the totality of performance points, faults, and execution so you can become a better lifter in the bench press. Might be something you're really, or overhead press, might be something you're really diligently working, like myself, as you recover from a back injury. But the last thing we want is to get into that over tuck position that Brandon talked about. Right? You can see I'm not staying underneath the bar. Elbows are not there. They're over tucked. And then pretty soon you develop this ache and pain in your elbow. Wrist starts to become problematic, or you're dumping and elevating. And now you have a shoulder issue, maybe even ending up in a surgery because you're strong. Now we have two problems. Stay stacked under the barbell. Avoid all those nasty aches and pains. You'll feel a lot better as you recover from what you're dealing with.
And a lot of people ask why that happens. I want to tie this into breathing, bracing, spine mechanics that we talked about in previous modules. A lot of the times this happens as far as the overzealous tuck when somebody tries to depress the scapula. It's simply a compensatory strategy to create stability. Very similar to bracing. When somebody tries to brace in a squat, oftentimes one of the number one faults is this right here. They're getting ready to go through a squat eccentric and they do this. They go into a posterior pelvic tilt, they crunch, because that's the compensatory strategy they are relying on rather than using their stabilizers to create intraabdominal pressure to expand in that 360 sheath we constantly talk about. But here leads another really good point. Kyle, is breathing, bracing, spine mechanics, is bracing in the bench very important?
100%. It has to be. Now, if anybody wants a big bench, Brandon hit a very impressive bench in mid fives, 535 was it?
Let's call it that.
Yeah, like 535, 545 maybe. It's a fishing story. It's getting bigger. 555. Anyways, well over 500. Self unrack, no wrist wraps. We were there. It's on our videos. Hit it with spot. Pretty light body weight to do it. Wasn't a competition lift. It would have passed competition standards. Legit press in the gym. The amount of leg drive he created was massive. If you don't know leg drive well, you wouldn't have been able to see it. You're like, it didn't look like he did anything. That's how much tension was created there. Big, strong legs, because he's got a strong squat and deadlift as well. How did that energy get transferred into these meaty triceps? Well, it wasn't because he relaxed. There was a big setup, optimized his position we're going to show you, but this was locked down, so all of the drive from the legs was transferred up through the torso, out to the arms into the barbell. Yes, of course, that was generated from the foot, so foot's at play here as well. Now, a lot of people are big, big archers. Some of us watching this may not be. I've seen some of our best bench pressers, when we've taught them more of a global arch or really bias in the T-spine and then teach them to brace well, I've actually seen their arch come down a little bit, and the arch comes down in the low back a little bit. Yet their bench press maintained and or went up. So it's not just important for the performance aspects of being able to bench more and utilize your leg drive, stronger legs, good transfer of energy, stronger bench, incline, overhead press, if we're using leg drive, whatever the press may be. But if we can pull ourselves out of this massive lumbar arch because we're setting up that little bit of brace right there, now I'm pressing more and keeping my spine safe.
Absolutely. Now let's go ahead and get into common faults, and probably the most common of which that starts the press that we see so often is unracking with a bar placement that's just far too high. We see this all the time, and Kyle's showing this here. Hopefully you can see pretty darn well from this position, but basically what's happening is that barbell at the start of him unracking is way the hell up here. It's above his forehead even, which I know seems like a bit heavy. I know seems like a bit of an exaggeration. Like if I was seeing this and I had no experience coaching, I'm not gonna lie, I might think, yeah, right, you're exaggerating, but I promise we're not. Even high-level bench pressers, I see this happen sometimes where they put themselves in a position, they're gonna waste a shit ton of energy, they're gonna lose their thoracic arch, which is actually really important, and then lastly, they put a lot of strain, a lot of safety risk on that shoulder girdle by unracking from a position like this. Our body is not meant to unrack heavy-ass load, 400 or 500 pounds in a position like this, but furthermore, what's the point. You only need to be far enough out from under the bar to not hit it during the actual press. Here's my pressing pattern. I start here, I end here, I end here. So now,
about that much.
exactly. This is the golden range. Bottom of lip to bottom to chin. Any higher than bottom of lip, and you are only causing further detriment.
Joking with Brandon, that's only 135 pounds on the bar, but it literally felt like 275 or 315. Now, I really scooted down as far as I could, and he hit it on the head. I had to do everything, including extend my low back to try to get in a position to unrack that bar. It was so far out. It's hell on your shoulders, it's hell on your low back, and it's going to make things feel a lot heavier. Avoid it like the plague.
Kyle, what do you think about looking at the bar?
While we bench, looking at the bar is going to cause a lot of problems. Now, this is probably going to flatten out your arch. So as far as low back health, it's probably not a horrible thing or not the end of the world, other than my magic thing that I hate to see more than anything is athletes that deviate position. I love it when we can just sprinkle on that magic dust and they learn to hold positions and they quit doing things during working out. If I set up and I have lots of intent, I have the good unrack that Brandon just talked about. While I'm maintaining position, nothing should happen. If I look at the bar as it goes down, it's very common for this to happen. Now, again, bringing up multiple injuries. I don't know anybody that's really had neck injuries by looking at the bar, but I know that we can walk around with a pretty tweaky neck from sleeping bad or lifting weird, right? Looking somewhere as you're deadlifting or doing shrugs. The last thing we want to do is go back to our chiropractor and be like, well, my low back hurts, but also, what happened to you? I was just bench pressing, doc. Can you fix this now? We don't want to do that. So you can see it from this view with lighter weight. This also leads to a massive anterior dump of the shoulder girdle, which will lead to shoulder problems, I guarantee. So I'm looking at the bar, I wonder where it's going to touch, and I do this, and then I heave it up. I don't want to do that again because I already felt that in my shoulder. You can see how much position I lost with my arch, let alone my shoulder.
Absolutely. You'll see people slip into massive, as Kyle touched on, elevation when they do this. There's just no feasible point just like that there. Oftentimes using compensatory strategies to stabilize and press the shoulder from there. And there's just no feasible reason to look at the bar. It is all detriment, no benefit. So pretty simple, don't do it. But there's one last caveat I have to add here. It's actually a pretty hard habit to break. I'm not going to lie. From somebody that's actually had it, it seems so simple. Just stop looking at the bar dummy. But once it's deeply ingrained, it's actually kind of hard to break the habit. So a habit or a practice that I actually ended up getting into, excuse me, I had a training partner at the time, way back in college. I had this issue so stinking bad, and I had a training partner named Joe at the time. Shout out Joe. And every single time that I looked at the bar and started actually elevating, he would use two fingers to thump me in the head, and that thump actually hurt really bad. And this reinforced keeping my head down, and it only took a week or two to agreeing to do this to quickly get rid of that. A multi-year issue turned into something that completely got rid of within a week with just a little thump, but that's how serious I had to take it to get rid of it.
We did a joking video on Instagram quite some time back, Brandon and I, about trying to tie the athlete's head down with a band. It's a joke, but it really can be hard to fix because we're so used to watching the barbell. It's like walking without looking at your feet. It's going to go in the right direction. You don't have to look at them when you walk out as well. Please don't look at the barbell as it descends towards your chest.
Yeah, next let's go and talk about wrist extension. Now, we've already kind of beat this topic to death a little bit when we talked about the overhead press. I'm just going to do one more reminder, and yeah, let me just act like I'm laying down, pretend my back's on the bench here. One more reminder. It's the same exact thing, except now we're going from here to here. But the number one reason why people end up with severe wrist extension, there's two big reasons. I'll start with number one, is they put the barbell way too high in their hand. They put it up here on their calluses. If I grab it lackadaisically and grab it in my calluses, it doesn't matter how much I'm squeezing the bar, how active I am. The second I bring this out in front of me, I slip into massive extension. So that's the first and number one reason. Second reason, sometimes people have decent bar placement in their hand. They just don't squeeze it. They don't grip it. They're not active.